welcome back to the Recharge. I'm Ruben Gonzalez, and as you can see, that's the Kyle Posey. And welcome to the show, Kyle. We got flexing in today before we start this one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what we do when the team's on this long win streak, right? Just got to flex, got to show off a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, welcome to the show. We're glad to see that you're able to make it. We're kind of having a couple guest hosts on the show as we go throughout the rest of the season. Let's talk about the Chargers as we are here to get recharged. Let's look back a little bit, and it was the Seattle Seahawks, the opponent last week, and the Chargers, like you said, got the win, got a little victory, win streak going. It was a 25-18 victory for the Chargers, and it was a pretty complete game. A little bit more dominant than what the score showed, but as you're about to tell us, it was a game that we can feel good about heading into the second part of the season.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it was a lot more dominant than the score indicates. And even with the Seahawks being on the 1 yard line about to score and potentially tie the game up, I never once thought that the Chargers were going to lose a game, which is weird to say, but that's just kind of how they've been. If you take away how Sturgis kicked the ball, they completely dominated the game. I thought the defense did really well. The offense, their first two drives, they came out and averaged 13 yards of play on those two drives. So they kind of had their way. And even they got a little bit conservative, and obviously the defense gave up some garbage time yards or some fourth quarter yards. But man, I thought it was a really good win, and it just kind of tells you how they're playing this year.
Yeah, I really don't like when the Chargers go in that second half shell where they kind of get a little conservative. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that's what they're trying to do. I hope they're not getting figured out halfway through the game. But I do agree it was a great quality win. One of those wins that you can actually say let the outsiders realize that, okay, man, this team probably is for real now after all. You wrote about this earlier this week. It was the first time an AFC team has won in Seattle, so it's another big feat for the Chargers, right?
Oh, yeah, big time. That's a tough place to play, man. And even with them losing like the Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, all the defensive guys that we're used to seeing, Seattle's still a really good team at home. They had the Rams on the ropes. Like they should have won that game. So if that doesn't tell you how big their home field advantage is, I don't think anything will. But for the Chargers to come out and kind of get that lead and kind of establish themselves, that just tells you that they are a legit team for sure.
I totally agree. One of the things that happened in that game was Des King had a tremendous game, actually being honored as the Defensive Player of the Week. He's ranked number 1 by Pro Football Focus. And, I've kind of been hearing little murmurs about Des King. How come they don't move him to cornerback number 2 opposite Casey Hayward? Can you please establish how great King is, but he's great in the slot, right?
Right. So it really comes down to like what they ask of him, and for what he is asked to do, he's like very, very good at it. And I mean like blitz off the edge, play underneath zone roll. He just guard these slots underneath, and sometimes he's asked to run down the field, but very, very rarely is he playing like these true man-to-man situations. So that interception was like a perfect example of his skill set. He will bait the quarterback. He will read the quarterback and he'll jump routes, but his man-to-man coverage is not so hot. On this season, he actually has a success rate of like 58%, which is below average. But I mean, a lot of people you only judge off of, what's he being targeted and this and that. So there's reasons that he's not on the outside, and it's probably best to leave him in the slot because he probably will be exposed. But for what he is asked to do, he's very, very good at it.
Yeah, there's no slide on the King where I'm trying to, make sure that everybody knows he's the best slot corner in the league, and it's where he needs to kind of stay. So, actually, last week when we did the midseason awards, I had him as the I'm glad you're on this team award because what he brings on that position, you just can't be overstated. Moving along, and I hope we can kind of finally put this one to rest. Will the kicking problems be solved from here on forward because the move was finally made to kick Sturgis off the team, right?
I hope so, man. Yeah, I hope so. So, Bagley hasn't missed a kick. He had 7 extra points, 3 kicks. The kickoffs are a little funky, and I saw Lynn address that they're just not going far enough. And even some of his made kicks they seem like knuckleballs, and I'm the furthest thing from a kicker analysis, but you know, you just have to make your kicks. It's the NFL. It's the highest level of football. So you have one job and you should do it. It shouldn't be that tough, you would think, anyways. But the Chargers sure do love to make it interesting. That's for sure.
Yeah. So that was last week. Let's move on to what we have ahead of us on Sunday, and it's the Oakland Raiders. Last time they played, it was a 26-10 victory for the Chargers. The Chargers since then have been on that streak, and it was the game that had Melvin Ingram having a great game. It's the one where he was actually lined up as a running back, so he was everywhere that game. If we all remember that one. Talk about the Raiders this week and the matchup. Ultimate trap game, but once again, the last time they faced off each other, we never really felt that the Chargers were threatened. Is there any reason to believe we shouldn't feel that way again this time?
I really don't think that they're going to be threatened. So they're 10-point favorites, and that kind of tells you what's expected. It's expected to be a blowout game, and if you just watch the Raiders play, they don't look hungry. They don't look like they're fighting for anything. They're kind of just out there going through the motions. That is not the same when you watch the Chargers. The Chargers are emphatic and they make plays and they feed off each other. So, I mean, there's not, as far as matchup wise goes on offense, we see who they don't have Amari Cooper anymore. It's Jordy Nelson and it's Martavis Bryant. On defense, they just lost their best pass rusher, Bruce Irvin. So it's a lot of young kids out there. There should be no reason the Chargers do not score over 25 points. Like, it should be a loss to them if they don't score over 25 points. And I imagine they're going to try to get after Derek Carr and let's try to establish some pass rush. So I think the Chargers will dominate the game, honestly. And I'd be very surprised if it was close.
Yeah, and as we get to our score prediction, you're going to see how close I think this one's going to be, or lack thereof. Okay, so a few years ago, Derek Carr was on his way to being in that upper echelon of quarterbacks. He was actually probably a leading candidate for the MVP that season. Any chance you feel sorry for how far he has fallen? I'm here in the Fresno area, so I kind of have a little tie there to him. So I never felt sorry for him. I never rooted for him because he was a Raider fan, but just a little bit, maybe like this part of my hair feels sorry for Derek because he's really fallen off the map.
No, I don't feel sorry for him at all. This is the big leagues, man.
Yeah.
I don't. So when Phillip Rivers was leading the league in interceptions, I didn't feel sorry for him. Like, if the ball doesn't bounce your way, the ball doesn't bounce your way. I feel like you have a job, you are supposed to do your job, and he's not doing his job. Even early on when he had that success, I never felt like he was like one of the top quarterbacks, and that just kind of played its way out. He's just not aggressive. He's not taking these shots. He's not accurate or sure of himself. The difference between watching Derek Carr throw the ball down the field and watching Phillip Rivers throwing down the field is like the Grand Canyon when you compare it. There's just so big of a gap there between the two. So, no, I don't feel bad for Derek Carr. Here's what he should do: play better. How about that?
All right, hey, I'm down for that too. I could care less, actually, in the big scheme of things, because, yeah, who cares about the Raiders? I certainly don't. I almost want to let off a couple F-bombs about them, but I'll keep it PG this time. Last week, the last time they faced, I let out a few. One thing to worry about for the Chargers, we see that the Chargers seemingly have all the advantages in this one, but there's got to be something that they should be worried about, perhaps.
So I would say if Marshawn Lynch was playing, I'd be worried about that because he runs his butt off. Like, he's really tough to tackle or corral. Before that, well, so he's not playing, so they don't have to worry about that. And just Doug Martin is not a guy that you have to worry about. Maurice Hurst is actually solid, the rookie from Michigan. He's made some plays. He didn't do anything the last time they played. Jared Cook had a hot start to the season. He's kind of fizzled off. So, I mean, they have some guys that you might raise your eyebrow at, but again, their record is their record for a reason. There's no hiding. There's no guys that are overperforming. They're just not a very good, like, for lack of better phrase, they're not a very good team right now, if we're being honest. So I don't think there's anybody that really, oh, this guy has to be stopped or the Chargers will lose.
Yeah, I feel the same way. The only thing I would say to worry about is, and maybe I don't even want to say it anymore because I don't want to jinx it, but perhaps staying healthy and after this game is over, no injuries. That's probably what
Always.
The Chargers should have to worry about. So no need to get hurt on this game, perhaps. We kind of alluded it already. Matchup to watch. I've got Jared Cook against the Darren Phillip combo. I mean, what else is there out there to watch out for if you're really trying to scout this one?
Well, we can watch some young guys. So just like I mentioned, Maurice Hurst against Dan Feeney or Michael Schofield. Schofield got off to a hot start, but since then he's been taking like kind of a downward slope. So I don't know if we slowly start to see Forrest Lamp. Maybe cross your fingers, but yeah, that would be the one matchup that I would keep an eye on, just because it's the biggest advantage that they would have, I imagine.
Yeah. It's really tough to pick out a matchup on this one. Yeah, like I said, Jerry Cook, maybe that's the only person I can think of that's going to kind of strike a matchup problem, perhaps. We'll see. We're breezing through this one. Score prediction for this one, Kyle. What do you got?
Yeah, I think the Chargers win big. I think the Chargers are going to cover. I do think the Raiders are going to get some, we'll call it pity points. So points, they might score, and they'll probably score in the first half, but I don't think it'll be much outside of that. I would say they'll score more than they did last week or last time that they met. Let's go 27. Let's go 27-13. How about that?
27-13. Okay. Well, yeah, you're going to go give them I'm going to go ahead and say something around the 42-13.
Yeah, look at you.
Because I hate the Raiders. Everybody should know that by now, especially with, like I said, I live here in the Fresno area, so everybody's a Raider fan. Everybody's a 49er fan. So anytime these teams play, I have no love lost for them. That'll move the Chargers to 7-2, we presume. It'll be the fifth time in history that they've got to this feat. So by now, do you have any reservations? Is this a special season? Is this for real? This record that they have, is this a for real team, Kyle?
I think it's very real, and I think you can see that just by some of the starts that they have. You know, it seems usually a slow starting team, or there's always some sort of hiccup, or I feel like there's a couple games that they would have lost the last couple years that they've won this year. So the tide's turning, and it's pretty clear that, you know, they're playing for each other, and, you know, emotion is a big part of football, and you can tell that these guys are actually friends. They actually like each other, which helps. So no, I think that they're for real, and I think we're gonna find out in December when they play some of these heavier AFC teams like the Ravens and the Steelers that they are legit.
I was talking to somebody about the Chargers. They were asking me what was the difference, and I kind of said the same thing. It's a team that believes as a team. This is a core group of players that have been together through a losing part of their careers, and so they kind of broke out of that. And now I think when they see how close they can get, I think it's just kind of pulling them together even more. And then they said this long road trip that they have. They're spending a lot of time together in hotels and stuff. So really getting to know each other probably more than they have before. I'm just hoping that it's a successful season. So everything's looking good so far. Hopefully the Chargers, they do move to that 7-2. Kyle, first off, you have a couple things before we sign off here. You have a live show that you try to do after the game, and you also have a couple podcasts, right?
Yeah, I sure do. So after the game is over, usually on Sundays, probably about 10, 15 minutes after the game's over, I'll get on YouTube, and I throw it out. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to go through some of the pain that I'll put you through, KP_show. And I mean, the account it's just not serious at all, just because we're talking about a sport. So, I mean, if you want to take football super serious, I'm probably not your guy, but we just get off and talk about some of the game recap. You know, we keep it light, and it's just, you know, it's fun. It's pretty laid back.
All right. So, yeah, join Kyle. And, of course, if you guys are Chargers fan, you guys already know who Kyle is. So, want to thank you again, Kyle, for showing up today and doing the show with me. It was a great time. We got through this one rather quickly.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. Anytime.
Yeah. All right. Anytime. Okay. Let's see. We'll have some things. We're going to try to have something later on during draft season, and so sure. We'll try to work on something like that. So want to remind you, after this show, right after it, we're going to have a little bonus section. We're going to ask Kyle what is his ultimate cornerback, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next week, hopefully after another Charger victory. Thanks for recharging with us. We'll see you guys. Bye-bye. All right, we're back for the bonus section of the recharge, and we've got Kyle here with us. And so the question this week we're going to ask, or I'm going to ask because I'm interested in this one. What is Kyle's ultimate cornerback? Go ahead, Kyle. Shoot it off.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple different traits if we're just picking out of a bag. Let's say these traits, I want this person to be this perfect person. And so I guess if you want to start, you have to have awareness. So you have to have instincts. You have to be able to know what's coming, just what I would call route recognition. So if I'm going to pick somebody in the NFL, that person is probably Aqib Talib, former Bronco, now Ram, who's injured, and it shows that, now that he's not playing. But Aqib Talib, man, he just reads routes so well, and he just doesn't. What I would say is he doesn't get fooled too often. And people always bring up double moves, but that's going to be anybody's going to get beat off double moves. But just knowing where the sticks are and just being physical, and I really like his style of play. I would go Talib for just awareness, instincts, route recognition.
Okay. How about speed, quickness? Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, you said Verrett. If Verrett could stay healthy, it probably would be Verrett. But this guy just never plays, man. Yeah. So it could be a couple different guys. Desmond Trufant is really, really quick. He's a guy that kind of doesn't get as much recognition as he should. A rookie that's actually been pretty impressive in that regard is Jair Alexander. He's really nice in that regard. I would say, I'm a big fan of William Jackson from the Bengals. And he's a taller guy. He's a more physical guy, but he's really, really quick. And what quickness is if you're beat, like if you have a step and you're able to make up ground, that recovery is probably a better way to even put it. So I would say that he's really good at that. So I would go William Jackson.
Okay, William Jackson it is. How about speed? We talked about speed. That catch-up speed, right?
Yeah, and that's you can act like it's not a big deal, but if you can't run in this league, you're just not going to make it. So even in this day and age, like how he's getting quote unquote older, I think Patrick Peterson is still that guy, man. He seems like the receiver on a lot of plays just because he's so damn fast. But I would say Patrick Peterson when it comes to speed.
Okay. How about sure tackling? Who's the one guy you want tackling there? And I'm interested in this one.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it could be. You could say before this year, it might have been Desmond King. I mean, he's had some missed tackles this year, but he's a very good tackler. A rookie that has been very, very good at tackling is Dante Jackson out of LSU, and he'll play tonight. He plays for the Panthers. That guy is a very, very good tackler. And then, I mean, there's guys like a Richard Sherman, and there's plenty of guys that you could name, but I don't know, man. It's tough just because we watch so much Chargers. Not to say Desmond King, just because he's around the ball so much. So why not? Let's go Des King.
Somehow I had a gut feeling. Okay, so the final one, technique. Who's got the best technique in your mind?
Oh man, I could say William Jackson there too. So, I could say Patrick Peterson there. I could say, technique wise. So I don't want to say Casey Hayward because this year it hasn't been Casey Hayward, even though in years past, years past it was hands down Casey Hayward. So Jalen Ramsey has very good technique despite being like a super, super athlete. So does his teammate. And not to mention the first guy I said, Aqib Talib. But trying to think outside the box, who would be the best technique? Because I'm trying to stay away from, just the top guys like a Patrick Peterson, who is very, very obvious. Jimmy Smith from the Ravens actually has really good technique, thinking about it. And he's either suspended or hurt, it seems, so much that we can't get to see enough of him. But he's just so physical that he gets his hands on you right away, and he just like eliminates you from the play. When another good corner who isn't a really good technician, but he seems to make up with it with his athleticism. It's kind of off the wall here. Is Janoris Jenkins?
Oh yeah, crafty veterans. You just
right
there. Okay, so we've got Kyle's ultimate cornerback with that. And one quick question before we sign off here: is there any of that person in this year's draft that has all those skills?
Oh man, I have no idea about any corners in the draft. I usually don't get into draft stuff until like February. I'm pretty heavy NFL. Like I know Georgia has a corner that I've seen make some plays, but honestly, I'd be no good for that. I just have no clue who's out there right now.
Okay. Cool.
But,
all right.
But I imagine Chargers fans are going to want to know because that is going to be a position of need.
Looks like that position's open. Yeah. All right, Kyle. Thank you for your time, and thanks for coming on this bonus section as well as being on the guest host for this week's Recharge. So for everybody, thanks, Kyle, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Sounds good.
Yeah.